to be very blunt, when I started, I couldn't really speak Korean either, so I didn't really know much of what I was singing. But a few years in, I started to write my own songs, and I wanted to tell my own stories and create lyrics that meant something more to me.
Where was your head at?
The album is House on a Hill, and it was written during a very much of an existential crisis of sorts. I think for me, I've been doing music professionally for a little over 10 years, and you're always wanting to improve on your career, make better music, to chart better, to sell more albums, to do more tours, you have all these metrics of success. And for me, I think I realized that I hit a lot of those metrics for me very early on, and it's about like this never-ending rat race of like when is more and more and more actually enough. And that goes beyond just my career, but just also like the things that people tell you need to have. You need to have an apartment or a home or a family or all these different things that we think we need to have all the time. And if you don't have them, does that make you lesser of a person or less whole? And these are the questions that I think I was really having when I put this album together. So answering those questions and figuring out that it's okay to not have everything figured out, that it's okay to take things at your own pace and your own time, and that not everything has to be by the book. I think that was kind of the exploration that I went through in putting this album together.
And there's the relation with that, with the way the Korean pop industry is set up, and maybe the difference with the American Western star, which is about stars opening up, being more emotional, relatable. How does that side of things play into it? Is that?
Well, for me, I think, when I first started my career, I started in Korea, so a lot of it, to be very blunt, when I started, I couldn't really speak Korean either, so I didn't really know much of what I was singing. But a few years in, I started to write my own songs, and I wanted to tell my own stories and create lyrics that meant something more to me. And so I'd say since 2016, 17 is when we started to put out songs that I had written. And since then, it's been more of a creative endeavor, lyrically and musically, in putting those stories out. And I think I've been challenged to be more open and transparent and honest with my lyrics as time has gone. So though I started in the K-pop industry, I think at this point, I am as open and honest as I would like to be in my storytelling.
And is K-pop changing in that way? I mean, what's the reaction been like for your fans in Korea to that new direction?
I definitely think that there are a lot more artists who are being very forward and open and honest with, their life experiences, which is a good thing. And I think there's also a world in which you don't have to be completely 100,000% open and honest about every aspect of your life. We have to keep things for ourselves, because otherwise we're living for everybody else and not for ourselves. And so that's like a fine balance, but I think there is something to be said about relatability always having been a factor of music in Korea. It's just, there are so many different forms of it. There are massive K-pop idol groups where perhaps when they're starting out, it's more about what the label might be giving you. But I think as artists, as we all are, as we continue to develop our careers, we want to have that personal connection. So it's been I think a great development over the years.
Give us a bit of how you got into the industry, because it's not an obvious path, and whether you could imagine yourself sitting in the Deloitte's somewhere in the world at this point.
So yeah, I graduated with the International Studies bachelor's degree, and I got a job at Deloitte Consulting doing strategy and operations. But before I started, I ended up in India doing a social enterprise fellowship, which somehow led me to a singing competition show in Korea through YouTube. And I got to the top 5, and I signed a record deal, quit my job, and I've been doing music since. So that was 2011, I graduated college, put out my first EP 2013, and I've been doing music since then.
Are there moments when you feel like you wish you could go back to the anonymity that you would have had?
I think there are moments where it's not so much anonymity. I think it's more about sense of normalcy. Because I just travel so much and my day-to-day is so irregular, there are times when I wish I was just very stable. But I think if I was very stable, I would feel the exact opposite of I want to travel. It's catch-22.
I know the feeling. Did it make a difference for you that you didn't go through that quite rigid K-pop training thing that I understand is?
I think there was a steep learning curve for me. I felt very underprepared when I debuted because I couldn't dance like everybody else, and I couldn't perform, I felt, like everybody else. So for me, it was a challenge of how do I create something that is unique to me that only I can do? And I think for me in Korea at that time, it was more pop-leaning music and utilizing my ability to speak multiple languages. And so that kind of became a strength of mine. And that's kind of how I think I really developed my career there.
Korean culture has taken over the world. It's the big story of the century, I think, culturally for me. How do you explain their success? Is it something that other countries could emulate, coming at it from the outside?
Can other countries emulate it? I'm sure there will be some that will try and some that will, perhaps come close. I just think I think Koreans are full of passion in every sense of the word. And that is something that really comes through in every aspect of the culture, from technology and innovation. Think about cars and chips to phones and TVs. And then we have TV, film, music, food, skincare. There's every single industry we are in there as Koreans competing for the top spots. And I think that comes from a passion about work, about life, about figuring out how to make things better all the time. And so I'm sure there are other cultures that work just as hard and have those stories and those capabilities. It's just about timing and luck and really putting forth those efforts. But it's been really incredible and magical to see Korean culture really take over the world in such a fascinating and encouraging, and I think magical way.
I saw that there are a lot of jokes in Korea about your age, like people joking about the fact that you're old or something, and it's true that it's a lot youth-based. So how do you feel about aging in this industry, and is it possible?
I don't even think it's a Korean thing. I don't think my Korean fans say anything about my age. It's more of my international fans, and it's because I don't know. I'm surrounded by a lot of I'll phrase it again. I think I don't know if it's particularly Korean fans. I think it's just my fans in general like to tease me about it. But it's because I work with and am friends with so many different people in the industry. Music and entertainment, like many other industries, there's always young talent coming up who are so talented and who are so great. And when you've put in your time, like I have for 12, 13 years, it's only natural that you're going to meet people who are younger than you. And so it's kind of like an ongoing joke where I am forever 19. You don't need to know how old I actually am, which I'm sure you already do. But it's fine. I think in music, there was this fear for a long time that once you hit a certain age, you're not able to perform or be relevant. But I think times are changing, and I think there is also a great level of growth and maturity and beauty that comes with aging. And you're only able to talk about certain topics once you hit a certain level of maturity. And so I think everybody has a story to tell. Everybody has a time and a place and an era to tell those stories. And so for me, I think it's a great thing.
All right, great. Then I saw you talked a lot about mental health stuff, and especially in an interview with S.G. Lewis, I guess, you said that in a world tour like you are now, it can be quite lonely and feel like stressful and everything. So how do you feel about this tour? Is it the same?
I think everybody has moments of loneliness, but for me, I'm very lucky in that I have a great team, I have a great crew, and I like to think of most people that I work with as friends. And so, you know, when we're touring, there is a good mix of both. And so I don't think I'm particularly lonely, and I think everybody on tour, we're all probably the same amount of lonely perhaps, and so we're all there for each other, and it's been a lot of fun.
All right. And so yeah, and basically also like, how does it feel here in Europe, here in Paris? Like, how have you been?
I love touring Europe. There's something that's absolutely magical about waking up in a new city that looks different, speaks a different language, has a different food and a culture every day. And coming from the States, which is relatively new when you compare it to Europe, you wake up in history and culture and in these like old buildings, and it's such a cool experience. In Paris, I love coming to every time, just because it's such a vibe. Just everything about it. It's like very magical. There's the food, the people, like the fashion, the everything. And so I've been very lucky to have been in Paris probably like, I want to say 4 or 5 times in the past year. But I've been also able to make some good friends when I'm here. So it's a good mix of catching up with new and old friends, doing some shopping, hanging out with new people, grabbing some wine and having a good time. So it's been great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.